This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLesio and Kenny Bergamy.
All right, welcome to the show. As you can see, no Ray this week. He's enjoyed a little rest and relaxation. This program, however, never relaxes. And once again, we got some great information to pass along to you. Coming up, blueberry producers say the crop looks promising during harvest, but there's a new threat looming. Discover why imports from Mexico and Peru are stirring controversy among Georgia growers. Experience the ultimate garden lover's dream at the annual Southeast Green Conference and Trade Show. A world where every type of plant, tree, and equipment awaits, no matter how big or small. Plus,
well, everybody, Ranger Nick here. Coming up a little bit later, I'm hanging out with a scientist who's teaching us a thing or two about how grapes are grown here in Georgia and what's being done to keep them healthy before you have that glass of wine. That and a whole lot more starts right now on the Farm Monitor.
in the picturesque town of Alma, blueberry farmer Albert Wilds and his crew are in the midst of a bustling harvest season. Despite a few nerve-wracking encounters, including an Arctic blast and subsequent late freezes this spring, Wilds remains optimistic. The Monitor's John Holcomb shares his story.
Here in Alma, Albert Wilds and his crew are hard at work harvesting this season's crop of fresh blueberries, a time of year Wilds is no doubt excited to see, especially after having a couple of scares with Mother Nature, starting with the Arctic blast late last year and some late freezes earlier this spring.
Fortunately, the blueberries were dormant enough, it did a minimal amount of damage. After that time, we had some frost events, but not really extremely cold events. And the southern high bush that was in bloom during that time on my farm and most farms had overhead protection to protect the bloom. The rabbit eyes had not bloomed out, and we didn't get a frost on the rabbit eyes this year.
Wilds says because of that, his yields on this season's crop have been great so far, and he even says the weather has been nothing short of ideal for harvesting as well.
The yields thus far have been good. We have run into, in these rabbit eye, we've run into some packing issues, but fortunately they're doing okay. We haven't had any big rain events. That's what will really hurt you sometimes at this stage of the game, is you get a low down in the Gulf and you get about 4 days of rain and the berries will split. We haven't had that, so the softs that we've had, we've been able to kind of work through them, and everything's been pretty good.
One thing Wilds believes isn't good, however, are berries being imported from other countries like Mexico and Peru that are undermining growers here in Georgia and across the U.S.
To me, that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing now is the imports. And unfortunately, those imports are being brought in by American companies. But we are facing that problem with Mexico and Peru. As they've changed their varieties, they've moved to different elevations, and they can basically put them here anytime they want to.
However, according to Wilds, demand has been strong this season, as he says Florida growers are still reeling after Hurricane Ian last fall, and other areas are either behind or didn't have their typical yields.
Demand for blueberries has been strong. The market has been stronger than we expected. Part of it is from demand. Part of it, unfortunately for our fellow growers in Florida, they were hurt by the hurricane last fall and their yields were off. And I guess we took advantage of their misfortune. I'm sorry for them. But also what we have heard is that perhaps California was a little bit late. Mexico didn't come in quite at the time they were expected to, and perhaps not quite the volume that was expected.
Reporting in Alma for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Now to Athens, where the Farm Service Agency organized a vital workshop recently. The focus on this gathering was to shed light on the federal resources that are at the disposal of beef producers, specifically highlighting the Livestock Indemnity Program. While these are important resources that provide a safety net against unforeseen disaster, FSA State Director Arthur Tripp says he needs help from the producers to maximize their benefits.
Say, for example, a natural event, a hurricane, natural wind, come in and they affect your operation. We have programs that are triggered to help you. Another thing that's so important are drought conditions. It's so important that our producers self-report their drought status. We have programs that are automatically triggered that if we enter into a drought, the programs will be made available to our producers. So it's so important that we get the word out about those resources.
Time now to step into the world of garden enthusiasts at the Southeast Green Conference and Trade Show. It's a remarkable event formerly known as the Winter Green Conference. Despite the name change, this gathering continues to offer an abundance of educational sessions, vendor booths, and networking opportunities. Damon Jones explores this one-of-a-kind occasion and delves into the expert advice that awaits us.
It's like walking through a garden lover's fever dream at the Southeast Green Conference, as every type of plant, tree, and equipment can be seen under one roof, no matter how big or small. Add in the multiple breakout sessions, and it's an event that helps keep both gardeners and landscape experts up to date on the industry.
You know, it's just great coming back and continuing to learn. I've been doing this a while, but I continue to learn. And I continue to see colleagues and network with them. And, you know, this is kind of the premier event for that in the Southeast.
This type of experience is vital for all in attendance as the green industry continues to change and progress at a rapid rate.
But now there's all these other varieties and sturdier stems, greener foliage, less disease. It's constant. And that's the way our industry is. It just continues to improve, to evolve.
While it might be a bit intimidating for the beginning gardeners to sift through all of the different varieties and colors, doing a bit of preparation before even stepping foot in a garden center or nursery can make things much easier.
Have a plan. Have a plan when you go, because you want to buy a plant that's not going to overgrow your location. If you get a plant that overgrows your location, that's going to increase your maintenance time, your maintenance costs. If you've got a space, get a plant that will fit that space. Blooms, we all get excited about blooms, but don't let that be the only, don't let color be the only thing that you pick from it. You know, looking at textures, looking at form, shape, does it fit inside of the spot that you want to grow it in?
Once you have those flowers and plants in the ground, the biggest piece of advice is that gardening is anything but an exact science.
Don't be afraid to make a mistake, because you're not gardening unless you make a mistake. We all make mistakes. If you've been gardening for a long time, you've made a lot of mistakes. But with that, you have had a lot of success because you've learned from your mistakes.
While this industry saw unprecedented growth during the pandemic in 2020, the interest has yet to wane as people are seeing multiple benefits of getting out into their garden.
If you're gardening, you don't need to have a health club membership, because you're outside, you're burning a lot of calories. You know, it's healthy to be out in the sun, get that vitamin D level up. You're connecting with nature, you're connecting with the creation. And that's so important, that we as humans are connecting with the nature, with the native environments out there.
Reporting from Gwinnett County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Well, hey everybody, Ranger Nick. Coming up, we've got a grape segment about how things are grown in Georgia to make wine and what keeps those grapes healthy after the break. Well, some have accused me of being a bit of a whiner, and this month I really am. I get to hang out with a scientist that studies grapes and wine, and that's Dr. Sarah Louder. Hey, Doc.
How's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that you're able to join us this month, because here's the thing I want the folks at home to think about. Before they open that bottle of wine up and consume it and enjoy that, I want them to think about some of the things that go into preparing those grapes to be harvested, and that's something that you focus on from the fungicide part of this. Doc, tell me a little something about what goes into protecting these grapes and some of the things that you do.
Absolutely. So here we have our nice grapevine, which we've grown up onto the trellis system because it is a vine. It does need that support. And this helps kind of, one, push your grape leaves out and kind of get your clusters where you can get them, and hopefully you can get some fungicides in there in order to help control grape powdery mildew. Okay. This is a fungus which can grow on any of the green living tissue of the grapevine. So it can grow on your grape berries, which this is gonna, influence the wine that you produce. You don't necessarily want to eat this, which later in the season, if this had continued to develop, this has also probably caused some berry splitting and you get extra rots on it.
And what's so interesting about this, Sarah, is that when I see pretend grapes in a store on a mantle somewhere and they have this dust looking stuff on it, that's not a good thing. You're saying that is bad. This is a mildew. Mm-hmm. But I think about mildew when it's very, very wet. You're saying this grows where it's dry?
Yeah, so the white powdery look of powdery mildew is coming from the spores that carry their own water with them. And so while they like humidity, they don't like that free water because they already got the water they need to get started. So they'll fly away. It's a wind disperse, so it'll go disperse out and try to find some grape tissue that it can land on and grow on. And hopefully survive.
Right, and that's something you're worried about. That's something that growers in Georgia are worried about, and that's something I want to talk about next here is what do you do about that? And not only that, but also maybe even some of the, I'm seeing Japanese beetles up here eating away at these wonderful leaves. You're probably worried about that too, and I want the folks at home to think about things that scientists are doing to protect these plants. So let's go there next. Wouldn't you know it, here we are out taping the segment and a fan of the show approaches. Now, Sarah, you and I were just talking about some of the bad things that can influence that vegetation. Walk me through this contraption and what it's doing to ward off some of that stuff.
Absolutely. So this is an air blast sprayer, which is what is often used to apply fungicides to grapes. Even in organic vineyards, you're still often applying fungicides. It just depends on the products you're using. But you have your tank here, which is where you're going to mix that fungicide with water. And then it's going to get pushed through and circulated into these nozzles, which are going to spray out. And that pressure is pressurized by the fan to help blast that into those big canopies so you can get some good coverage on the inside.
And we're talking about not only a farm like might be in Georgia, 4 or 5 acres, but even a bigger farm these are being used on. Just how often you want to refill the tank, I guess, is something. We were looking at those grapes. Those were the red variety of grapes. Is that a type that is most susceptible to the bad stuff, or are we thinking more about the sweeter Georgia muscadine? What would you say to compare those?
So we were looking at some red hybrid grapes, which are hybridized from some of your more well-known European grape varieties that are very susceptible with some more American native varieties. And we have a lot of American native varieties that can be a lot more resistant to a lot of the disease, like muscadines, as well as some other grape varieties that are maybe a little less well known.
Good, good. And that's something I want to do next, is I want to talk about some of the things being done in Georgia, being grown here, that are more resistant to some of that disease. So let's go there next. Well, you heard us briefly mention muscadines, and we're in a muscadine vineyard now. And Sarah, I want to talk California versus Georgia. What makes Georgia an ideal place for growing grapes versus California?
Yeah, so here, muscadines, Georgia is the largest producer of muscadines in the world, muscadines are native to the southeast, but they're kind of like the difference between a horse and a donkey, where we have different numbers of chromosomes. It's a whole different species. And a lot of what makes growing muscadines great is because it's resistant to a lot of the diseases that's grown out here. But we can see some of the differences in the formation of the grapes, where we have serrated leaves, we have smooth bark, and it can also handle some very high vigor. We have a very big vine here growing up in this area here. But you can see some of this grape, and some of that is used to help reduce the berries. So we have some younger berries growing up in this canopy that as they are developing, they're still developing our fruit here. And then when we get into August, we're gonna be getting into veraison and some of our berry ripening stages. And as those berries ripen, they're gonna develop sugars as they go. And when we harvest our muscadines, they're gonna be very, very high sugars.
I was gonna say very sweet, huh?
Very sweet, very high in sugar. And so when you take those muscadines and you make wine out of them, sometimes the yeasts that are going to form your alcohol are not going to absorb, not going to use all of the sugar that's left in that grape juice. And that's some of the reasons, or one of the ways that you can get some of your more sweeter wines.
And that's what's so special about Georgia. The muscadine grapes, those acidic soils. This has been really great. I'm ready for a glass right now. Sarah, thanks for today. I so much appreciate you. And y'all, you know what to do. While you're online looking up things you can cook with that muscadine vine and that muscadine wine, check out the Ranger Nick Facebook page, see what I've got going on there. Until next time, for the Farm Monitor, I'm Ranger Nick, reminding you, as I always do, that enthusiasm is contagious. So pass it on. Y'all, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here again, this time next month. See ya.
Now, don't forget, if you missed any part of Ranger Nick's episode or other features on today's show, you can see them in their entirety at our YouTube channel. Plenty of content there, as well as a variety of subjects to choose from. The best of all, these archives go all the way back to 2009. Did you know the survival of every tree hinges on its intricate root system? Up next, Seth Hawkins of the Georgia Forestry Commission uncovers and explains the critical root zone and the lasting impact of soil disturbance.
Farmers are the first environmentalists. You know, we care more about the land than most anybody else, because if we don't have the land, we're done. It's a rarity nowadays for people to know where their food comes from. 40 years ago, 50–75% of the people knew a farmer. Now I'd say, you know, only 2% of the population's a farmer. It's really a tragedy because there's such a good story to be told in the dairy industry. We've taken an industry that back in the 50s, we had 50 million dairy cattle in the United States. And today, we're producing more milk with 9.5 million cows. Back in that day, a lot of people grazed cattle and had cattle walking in the streams, and I'd say pollution levels were a lot higher then. Today, we have to collect the waste from the cows and we have to store it until we can agronomically put it out on the fields, you know, so that we manage the soils properly so we get the most bang for our buck, but we also don't pollute the streams. When I took over managing our dairy in late 1999, early 2000, our herd average, which is milk that each cow produces per year, was about 18,000 pounds per cow. And today we're about 31,000 pounds per cow. Our cow, she walks into the barn, she gets milked. Milk's taken from her and put through a chiller. And that milk's taken from body temperature of a cow, which is about 102.5, and dropped to 35 degrees and put straight onto a tractor trailer. And it goes straight to the plant the next day. So most of the milk that's sitting on your store shelves is probably less than 48 hours old. And that's a pretty good testament to how efficient we are, so those products can get to the store shelf quickly. Up until this year, we've always sold our corn that we have for grain, but this year we put in some storage system and a grinder, so we're going to start grinding our own feed. It saves us a significant amount of money, and it helps us not have to truck product off the farm and truck it back, so it saves us some fuel costs and other things. The cows and the employees I have, I treasure every one. They help me be able to pay my bills and do what I do, and I don't ever want to take that for granted, but my family, the most important thing in this world. I would like to see this business carry on to my children if they choose to do this. the way that it's moving, I think they'll have more opportunities than I've had. We keep learning how to better feed cattle, how to get more production. I want to give them every opportunity to do better than I've done.
So, have you heard about Georgia Farm Bureau's podcast? Hosted and produced by John Holcomb, the Growing On podcast is all about keeping you in the loop with the latest agricultural news, issues, and topics right here in Georgia. Tune in to the latest episode by visiting GFB's website or by searching on popular platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Play. Well, finally this week, with summer temperatures upon us, chances are you're spending a lot more time in the yard fixing those hedges or improving the curb appeal. While you're out there, don't ignore those tree roots or the soil around your trees. Why is that, you ask? Seth Hawkins, community forester with the Georgia Forestry Commission, explains.
So when we're talking about our trees' root systems, it's super important to understand that the tree's roots are the most important part of the tree. Everything on the tree is predicated on having a healthy root system. So it's really important for us to understand where our critical root zone is and how deep our roots are when we're doing any kind of soil disturbing activity, putting any impervious surface in, just anything that's going to impact that root system. So when we talk about our critical root zone, which is the most crucial part of the root zone that the tree needs to be undisturbed and healthy in order for the tree to thrive. So you can see in the tree behind me, roots really are pretty shallow up in the ground. Really, especially in heavier soils, our roots are in the top about 12 or 18 inches of soil, so not very deep. So that makes them really susceptible to any kind of soil disturbance. And so when we're having to look at disturbing soil around our trees, it's important to understand how far out they go. So when we talk about that critical root zone, we have to measure the diameter and figure out the radius of that critical root zone so we know how far out our roots go and where we can get away with some soil disturbance. So usually you take that diameter measurement at 4.5 feet off the ground, which is called DBH, or diameter at breast height, which is a forester and arborist term. In the case of this tree, there were some branches that came out at 4.5 feet. So in that case, you take your diameter measurement at the most narrow spot below that trunk split, or that change in the trunk diameter. So once you take your diameter measurement, in this case, it was 8 inches on this tree. You take that 8 inches, multiply it by a factor of 1.3, and that will give you the radius in feet of your critical root zone. So for that tree, it ended up being about 10.5 feet in all directions is our critical root zone. So the rule of thumb with root and soil disturbance is you do not want to impact any more than 25 or 30% of that critical root zone. You can get away with some soil disturbance inside the critical root zone, but that 25 to 30% threshold is the top end threshold when you can expect the tree to start to decline if we impact more than that. So as you can see with this tree, there was some recent road widening and pavement installation here, and you can see that a lot more than 30% of the critical root zone of this tree got impacted. So we'll need to keep a close eye on this tree in the coming years, just to look out for any signs of decline that might come from that root loss and root damage. And one other thing I'd like to mention when we're talking about root protection and soil disturbance is soil compaction. So soil compaction can be as detrimental to a root system as tearing and ripping roots can be. So soil can be compacted by things like vehicular or foot traffic. Even the pounding energy of raindrops on unprotected soil can recompact soil. So it's important for us to do things like limiting vehicular and foot traffic, or coordinating that traffic to always follow one single line across the tree root zone, so we're only compacting that one piece of dirt. Also, having good established mulch beds will help alleviate and prevent further soil compaction. So that's all we have today on root and soil disturbance. For more information on this topic and many other tree care topics, please go to our website, gatrees.org. You'll find a lot of resources there to help you understand how to better care for the trees in your backyard. We also invite you to visit our Ask the Arborist webpage, where you can submit tree questions and pictures, and our team of arborists will help get you on the right path with your tree care. So thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Seth, thanks so much, and thank you for making this program possible. For Ray Delosio and all of us here at the show, I'm Kenny Burgamy saying take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time on the Farm Monitor. Have a great week, everybody.